Hey, everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. We are on part three of this lovely book, Stones of the Goddess, Crystals for the Divine Feminine. We have Nicholas Pearson here. And we had our first section that we talked about the energetic properties of crystals and why they're just so wonderful for spiritual practices and daily living. And then we talked about how to buy actually crystal. And now we're moving on to you bought the crystal. Now what do you do? How do you actually use crystals in your daily life? And so there's all sorts of things. And we had talked about, there's pouches and jewelry and grids and, people use this for divination and meditation and rituals so there seems to be multiple uses. How would you break this all down and when to use them and what to use for what?
Sure. So, for starters, the foundation that we build our work with crystals is one of reciprocal relationship.
Mm.
So we don't just pick up a stone and say, all right, I have this beautiful piece of blue lace agate. I know that blue lace agate is really good for bringing peace into the mind. So your job, you must bring peace into the mind.
Okay.
Um, you know, let's take a step back. Nobody likes a manager like that,
Right.
right?
Okay.
If you clock into work and your boss immediately doesn't even say hello and just goes, all right, so you're going to do this. The last thing you want to do is whatever just came out of their mouth, right? It's the same for our stones.
Uh,
So we want to have that sort of getting to know you phase.
mm,
And we might do that through meditation. We might do that by just appreciating their beauty. You might go to a well lit place, shut off the distractions, enjoy a cup of tea, and just like ooh and ah over the beauty of your favorite stones. And then from there, things might change. You might be intuitively led to ways to incorporate them into your lives. The simplest ways are kind of the maybe more background applications, tucking them in a pocket, wearing them as jewelry, sticking them on your shelves. But if we do these things mindlessly, then there's something happening in the background. But as we mentioned before, crystals are multidimensional tools. They have many functions. So which function do we do we really need most in our lives? If we don't give any sense of direction whatsoever, then they're going to kind of cycle through whatever they think might be the best. And
oh.
while they might be smarter than us in some cases, they might know what's best. It might not be relevant to the task we've got at hand right now.
Mm,
So, in the case of this blue lace agate, one of its other great qualities is that it's a great confidence stone because it kind of cycles through the filters of all the different layers of us to find out what we really are versus the expectations that get heaped upon us that we internalize, and it can
mm,
help us release those things.
mm,
So it gives us a sense of resiliency and inner and outer strength.
mm, mm,
But maybe now is not the time to do that level of processing. Maybe right now what you really just need is to stop being so stressed. So if we don't give it that clear and concise direction, once we've gotten to know it, then we might not get the results we anticipate. So even if we're just putting a beautiful rock in our pocket to carry with us for the day, pause and reflect on what value or meaning you'd like it to add. Doesn't
ah,
mean it's a magic bullet. It's not going to fix things instantaneously. If I put a lucky piece of aventurine in my pocket and go buy the lottery ticket, I'm probably not going to walk home and find out I'm a millionaire. I
right,
mean, maybe I will,
right.
but we can't have the anticipation that crystals solve all the problems in our lives.
Okay, so that's programming it. That's what you mean. So, like the stone, like this blue agate that
Mm-hmm.
you had mentioned, has many
Mm-hmm.
calming, all these different types of protecting, these kinds of attributes to it, confidence building. But I have to tell it what, but first, so the first step is to build a relationship. So,
Yeah.
meditate and like, hi, nice to meet you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, like whatever the
Yeah.
meditation is like. So, tune in with your stone and get a sense of it. And then say, like, hey, I'm going to carry you around. I would certainly love your help in building my confidence today. Would you do that? Because if I don't give it any direction, or is that what you refer to as programming? Is that the same thing?
So programming, it might be along the same lines, but maybe a little bit more focused and intentional. I think programming our stones is also programming us. We could set the intention with this crystal to help me with confidence or maybe communication or stress relief or whatever it is that we need.
Right.
And once we've gone through the formal act of programming, which is, having that laser-like focus of attention and intention and projecting that into the stone, you could leave the stone at home by accident and probably still retain those benefits of the day because you've planted the seed in your subconscious mind as well. So
Okay.
programming is kind of a double-edged sword there in a good way. It programs us and it programs our stones. But even without that really formal step of charging them with intent, just reflect on why. So, if it's a bracelet of lapis lazuli, what about it are you drawn to for today? And sometimes the answer is it called out to me. I don't know what the answer is. The stone picked me, and that's okay. You can surrender to that divine mystery. I think a little bit of overthinking can kind of spoil the fun sometimes. So
Mm,
surrendering to that mystery of it all, that's where the magic
mm.
happens some days.
So, what does it mean to consecrate and program it then? Because I understand that it's
Mm-hmm.
about, so first build a relationship with the stone. Well, first of all, do you have to cleanse it first before you even, like, you buy it from the store? Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit of the process. I just buy this from the store. What's the first step that you do when you take a stone home?
So we talked about in segment one about how all crystals have memory.
Yes.
So that means that they're imprinted with the energies that they've experienced,
Hmm.
and that's neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It's just a function of being a crystal, much like getting hungry is eventually a function of being human. It's neither
Right.
good nor bad.
Right.
So not every energy field that this piece of blue lace agate has encountered is necessarily aligned with my intention, my goal, or my focus for the day.
Mm,
So cleansing it allows me to sort of wipe off the chalkboard so
mm.
I can write just the message I need for today. So cleansing is a
Ah.
really integral part of our crystal work, and there are lots of ways to cleanse. I love
Mm.
to use the breath, but you can use sound or sacred smoke like cedar or sage or frankincense and myrrh
We
or
just like go
whatever
over and put
works
it
for you.
over. Yeah. Okay. So I cleanse the stone. I mean, some people
Hmm.
put it under the moonlight. So you could just
Sure.
breathe on it. So what would the breathing look like? Just.
Yeah. So there's a very specific type of breathing that I use that was founded by a guy named Marcel Vogel, a former research scientist for IBM who turned crystal healer later in life. And it's a sharp, focused pulse of the breath
That's it.
accompanied by visualization. So there's an internal part of it where we visualize what's necessary to sort of generate the focus.
Yeah.
But the external part is it's just kind of huffing some air on your crystal.
Right.
Um,
Okay. So it's like a Kalabati breath. So you're kind of like cleansing, focusing your mind and cleansing it out of stuff. Okay. So that's so first you cleanse it. And then what do you
yeah,
do once you bring, you bring this? I bought this blue agate for confidence, stress release, and I can't remember the other thing. But I bought
sure.
that. So what do I do? How do I consecrate and Program it.
So consecration literally means to make sacred, to make holy. And that's something that, like in the UK, there's a practice that's really common among schools of crystal healing that they call dedication. Same idea. It's that initial, it's almost like pre-programming your stone.
Mm,
Before we engage in any specific work, we put out the general call that this is a sacred tool. This agate or this quartz or this piece of lepidolite. I'm marking it as sacred, and I am dedicating it to positive things, to healing, to sort of
mm,
the general good things that we want to have, in a way that's almost like a safety net. It's an undergirding for the programming we're going to put in later. Like
mm.
maybe the job we want of this crystal is initially going to cause a little bit of distress because sometimes when we pull back the rug to see what's underneath it, what we find can be distressing, right?
Right.
So putting that little dedication or consecration point in there can maybe lessen the severity of those healing crises we might experience, but
Right.
it might also prevent the crystal from intentionally or unintentionally causing any sort of harm in our lives.
Hmm.
So once we've done that kind of thing, and it can be very elaborate, it can be very simple.
So just show me a simple way of me consecrating the stone. Would I say like please like I'm not sure exactly what I would do.
So you might formulate an intention or a prayer. A really simple way might be that after cleansing it, I consecrate and dedicate this crystal to only the highest good, to serve me in my spiritual development and for my healing on the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and any other level. And put this in your own words, make this
Right, no,
personal
I
for
love
you.
that. I like that. I would
Yeah,
consecrate the stone for my highest good and highest path, and bring forth this for my highest good. So that doesn't do some little aberrant thing that I wasn't expecting.
right.
That's what you're saying. And
Absolutely.
then I want to. So then I consecrate the stone, and is that the same? And I'm sorry. So that I make it holy. I cleanse it. I make it holy, and then how do I program this, or is that something
Mm.
that you do daily?
I would say that would be task specific.
Okay.
So, if you have a pendant that you're wearing for protection because you're going into a less than joyful work environment,
Yes.
that might be something you do every day before you leave the house.
Mm,
Or maybe you just need some general protection, so you do it once a week. I think it kind of depends on like what is the nature of the work we're doing with our crystal. If
right.
we're seeing clients and engaging with laying on of stones, I'm
Uh,
going to cleanse them immediately before and immediately after every session, because I want to make sure they're blank slates. And then accordingly, we might program the stones together just for that session. And then when I see
mm.
the next client an hour later, I'm going to cleanse and program all over again.
I think I'm not
So
sure which this one is. This like a do you know what this one is?
it appears to be a piece of black tourmaline.
Okay, so this is supposed to be for protection, right? I
It's,
think.
yeah, protective, purifying. It helps to transmute energies. It's a great stone for self discovery as well.
Okay, so if I wanted to work with a client who is having an issue, I'd say first I'd clean it out. I would consecrate it. Please make this for the highest good of myself, my and others. This and please,
Hmm.
what something come up with my own set of words, and then program it like please during a session, please provide us the protection that we need during this healing session and help
Hmm.
this person gain clarity. So is that what programming would look like?
It could. It's something that we could do by maybe formulating a very precise um, affirmation or mantra.
Oh, okay.
So, in a case of protection, especially for
Yeah.
personal protection, I
Yeah.
might just say, I am safe and sound wherever I
Mm.
am. You might have a particular image or color or symbol that you can visualize that represents protection to you. And then rather than using words, if you're more visually oriented, you can just visualize it and kind of protect or project rather that image into the stone.
Ah, okay. I am
Ultimately,
safe, or like I am
yeah.
safe, or like I don't know, Genghis Khan. Like I don't know who would be like I don't know. There's probably some more positive. I'm not sure image of you can pick the goddess, but like I'm gonna embed this with the goddess Kali, or
Sure.
so it's like to be fierce protection in this thing, and I am safe. So this would be the thing that I would like embed this with the programming of what I'm trying to do. And then I'm sticking my pocket because I'm like, oh, I'm in a toxic work environment. Please protect me specifically from John Doe. Like, is that
Sure.
is that like this? So that because you're saying I want to, it can be pointed in any direction. But if I give
Right.
it some more guidance for that specific day, then that's helpful.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think we and then does it so meditation, um, jewelry, like pouches, grids, divination, like how do the stones come into play with those kinds of activities?
So the applications for using crystals in our lives are manyfold. So we've been mostly using examples of ways to carry them on our person or use
Hmm.
them in very, intimate, personal, informal ways. But they have long been featured in things like ritual and spellcraft. So we might use a crystal grid as a sort of mandala or point of focus for the work that we do, whether it's a meditation or spellcraft or something else.
Mm,
We could energize water or sacred oils with crystal energy
mm,
that we could use to anoint things or
mm-hmm.
spray in our environment. We could create little conjure bags or pouches that are filled with herbs and stones and other ingredients, working synergistically. So it's creating an end result that's bigger than just the sum of its parts,
Mm,
to also kind of aim at that desired outcome. But the great news is that when it comes to working with crystals, we're only limited by our imagination, and then of course the practicality of something.
mm-hmm.
If you want to make a spell pouch to give away to someone for protection, you probably don't want to have to use really high quality diamonds in large quantities because that's
Right,
not practical.
right,
Diamonds are great protectors, but I think there are more economical choices we can make.
right,
So the book has a bunch of different ideas in there that you can treat like a recipe book.
right.
Use it as inspiration. And once you understand the ingredients in a recipe, it's easy to make a substitution. But I wouldn't substitute until you understand the ingredients. If you're trying to make hot chocolate and the recipe calls for a dash of cinnamon, and you say, well, I really like garlic powder, so I'm going to use that instead because I don't
Right.
have any cinnamon, and you just make that substitution, you get a very different end result. So it's the same with our spellcraft.
Uh,
Make sure you understand that the how and the why of the substitutions you're making. You might say, I don't have any cinnamon, but maybe I'll add a dash of cayenne or a little hint of
right.
cardamom or something that is, conducive to the end result we're seeking.
Right, I got it. Okay, got it. So I'll have to go more into that next when I talk to you. This has been fascinating. I have one last question because I have a crystal bowl, and I've been wondering,
Hmm.
it's like a bowl that you play,
Hmm.
and you. What's the purpose of those bowls?
So I think it's going to differ from maker to maker what they're going to tell you as far as the purpose is. But a lot of people use singing bowls and other instruments, whether they are metallic or crystalline in nature, for sound healing. Sound has a really profound effect on us, and we respond very well to sound, especially when it is something that kind of transcends language. It's not just
Right.
the words we're singing or saying, but it's just the pure vibration.
But when you're playing a bowl, I assume
Mm-hmm.
that it's like you have all the different qualities that you're telling us about the bowls, but
Mm-hmm.
then you're playing it as an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, is it the vibratory qualities that you have of that crystal get transferred into sound? It's like just like a different expression.
So when they make the bowls, they melt the crystals down, and so it actually becomes a non-crystalline glass. So
Oh,
it's what we call fused silica glass. So it's made out of
oh,
pure optically clear quartz, but by the
yes.
time it's fused together and spun, it lacks it's the same ingredients, but it no longer has the same regular structure.
Mm,
So in this case, we're using crystal to describe the clarity of them, or maybe the ingredients that went into them, and not the lattice that's present
mm.
therein.
Okay,
But still, it produces a very pure, resonant tone, often with gorgeous overtones. So I use them for the therapeutic effect of sound, not necessarily for a crystal lattice, which isn't present. But
got
even
it.
glasses might have short range order, little clusters of molecules that appear crystalline rather
Got it.
than large chains of crystal lattices.
Interesting. Okay, this has been so fascinating. We've been talking to Nicholas Pearson about his book, Stones of the Goddess, Crystals for the Divine Feminine. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.